Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Colonel John Hunt Morgan, pictured here, and his star rose to new heights following his raid into Kentucky in July 1862. His 24-day, 1,000-mile ride with 900 troopers left in its wake disrupted enemy supply lines and a boost of enthusiasm for the Southern cause. Though Morgan had much to celebrate upon his return to his base in Tennessee on July 28th, Union military operations spreading out from occupied Nashville demanded his attention, leaving little time to rest on his laurels. Beginning in early August from its camp in Sparta, Morgan's men probed the region east of Nashville, acting on intelligence gathered from locals and other sources. Morgan hunted for weaknesses in the enemy defenses and sought to disrupt and destroy all things federal. An intriguing bit of intelligence arrived on August 19th in the form of a report of 300 enemy infantry recently arrived at Gallatin. Morgan, now with about 700 effectives, divided his command into two and went after them. One group rode for a railroad 7 miles below Gallatin, where they believed the enemy infantry might meet a train to transport them back to Nashville. By the time they arrived, the infantry had left. However, the troopers did happen upon a federal outpost, easily capturing the 40 to 50 man garrison who happened to be outside their protective stockade. They continued on and took a second outpost, forcing the surrender of the men inside the stockade, this time without even firing a shot. The second group was led by Morgan himself, and he made a beeline for Gallatin. The story of what happened next is told by Brigadier General Basil Wilson Duke in his 1867 book, History of Morgan's Cavalry. Duke served as second in command to Morgan, who was also his brother-in-law. Duke advanced to full command in 1864 after the death of Morgan. Duke went on to become one of the Confederacy's leading historians before his death in 1916 at age 78. In this account, Duke traces Morgan's route to a place called Edgefield Junction and reveals an innovative plan to take the sturdy stockade and its garrison. Also notes the loss of two of Morgan's favorite officers. So let's begin. Duke says, or writes, we found that the enemy had taken off nearly every male inhabitant of Gallatin above the age of 12, and the women were all in terrible distress when we came in to town. This had been done on account of the kind reception which had been given us in the place on the 12th. Morgan and his men had been there just a week earlier. We also found the corpse of one of our men killed the night before in another action, and the citizens told us that he had been kicked and cuffed after he was shot. As we passed out of town on the Nashville Pike, we saw a bridge, and on the bridge the stain of Manley's blood. Manley, their favorite popular soldier in Morgan's command, who had also been killed recently. The men, on seeing the blood stain, became very much excited and could scarcely be kept in the ranks. As we pressed on down the road, we reached the point where Hutchinson, that's the commander of the first group, had been directed to intercept the party, which had been to Gallatin. He had failed to do this, but had captured a stockade garrisoned by 40 or 50 men. He came upon the party, after which he started, but they had passed the point at which he could have checked them. Another garrison of 50 men was captured at a stockade still lower down, and we came soon upon the men we were looking for. We could not prevent the escape of the greater portion, who got on hand cars and ran down the railroad, but we killed some 40 and released all the prisoners, all those men from age 12 on up, and Gallatin. At Edgefield Junction, First Lieutenants James Smith, who reached that point first with a part of his Company A of the 2nd Kentucky, attacked the stockade, there supported by Captain Breckinridge, who shortly after arrived. Breckinridge, another name from Kentucky. The inmates of the stockade made fight, and Smith lost 3 of his men, and he himself was shot through the head, of which he soon died. Lieutenant Niles of Morgan's staff was also killed at this point, shot through the body with 5 or 6 balls. I came up at the time that these officers were shot and ordered the men back. I saw no chance of reducing the work, even with great loss and the time that would be allowed us. These stockades were built with heavy, upright timber, 10 or 12 feet high. They were surrounded by ditches and pierced for musketry. Assailants, when right at this bases, were as far from taking them as ever. There was a plan which I am satisfied would have been successful against them, but I never saw it tried, namely, to construct bundles of bushwood large enough to shelter a man and compact enough to stop a musket ball, and place a sufficient number of them in the hands of the men who, holding them in front, should advance and press them against the loopholes. Of course, riflemen would have to be posted in range to prevent a sally on the bundle carriers. The fire from the stockade having thus been stopped, the walls could be chopped down with axes, or brush in large quantities could be set on fire and tossed over among the defenders until they concluded to surrender. This plan, however, would require plenty of time, and that is just what partisan cavalry have least of on such occasions. Colonel Morgan was much attached to both Smith and Niles, and it was with great difficulty that he could be dissuaded from continuing to attack until the stockade was taken. Lieutenant Smith had been one of the best soldiers in the squadron and had been given universal satisfaction by his conduct as an officer. He was more than ordinarily brave, intelligent, and zealous, and would certainly have made a field officer if he had lived a few months longer. His men were devotedly attached to him. So there's the end of Duke's telling of his experience and Morgan's experience going into Gallatin, searching for a group of infantrymen, and finding instead that men and boys had been taken from the town, supposedly, reportedly, by the Union troops or by some group as they left. And of course, Morgan's pursuit, dividing his command into 2 groups and then heading out to find the individuals who took the citizens. And of course, along the way, capturing some havoc and further disrupting the Federals while they were trying to hold on to occupied Nashville. In the end, Morgan had to head back and live to fight another day, less 2 of his best officers. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.